Back with this Fox News alert, a major development today in the murder of former St. Louis police captain David Dorn. Trace Gallagher standing by with the latest for us tonight. Hi, Trace.
Hi, Martha. David Dorn was shot while he was inside Lee's pawn shop, protecting it from looters, and police have now released surveillance video also from inside that pawn shop that shows 7 people crawling one after another beneath a security gate into the store. At least 2 of the suspects are armed, and one of them points a gun at the door. Now, it's unclear at what point David Dorn was shot, but police say he was hit by gunfire inside the shop and was able to make it outside, where he collapsed on the sidewalk. The suspects, as you can see, were wearing masks, but the video is very clear, and police are hopeful that somebody will recognize them, and if you do, call St. Louis police. David Dorn was a St. Louis police captain for 35 years before retiring and taking a job as a small-town police chief. Dorn, the father of 5, grandfather of 10, was also instrumental in mentoring numerous young people who were interested in pursuing law enforcement. I just want to note that Lee's pawn shop is on Martin Luther King Drive. Martha.
Indeed it is. Trace, thank you very much. So that news coming as calls to defund or lower funding for police across the country continue to rise up nationally. You've got some leaders in Minneapolis taking things further. They want to completely dismantle the police department in favor of a new transformative force that would protect people, apparently, after the death of George Floyd. The city council there holding an emergency meeting today, and they reached an agreement with the state to ban police from using chokeholds along with some other reforms. Juan, I just want to go to you first on this, because one of the things that I find really disturbing in this David Dorn story, you know, we all are sympathetic to George Floyd, horrified by what we saw on the video in the evil in the officer's face who was able to snuff his life out the way he did. But my question is, where is the protest across the country for David Dorn? Why do we not see similar outcry for this man who was 38 years on the police force, as Trace pointed out, father of 5, grandfather to 10 people? Where is the outcry?
Oh, I think that these criminals should be prosecuted with the full force of the law, Martha. I don't think that you're going to see any hesitation about that coming not only from the St. Louis Police Department, but from the people of St. Louis. Black, white, Asian, Latino. It's a horrific thing to see a man who served his community in that way lose his life to these criminals. So what you ask, though, is as if, you know, Mr. Dorn and the police department and the politicians in St. Louis don't have voice. Of course they do, and they have the power to exercise it. I think in the other case, you're talking about people who feel like a problem has been ignored, not given voice, and they are taking to the streets in peaceful protest to say we need to deal with a problem, of course, that you properly depicted, you know, somebody putting their knee on someone's neck for 9 minutes and the other officer standing around. Just a quick note here, I think that these calls to defund the police are, I don't have much respect for it, to be just quite brutally honest. I mean, to me, poor communities need the best policing. And if you're talking about money, as I was saying yesterday, we don't need, you know, excess military equipment after Afghanistan pouring in, making it look like the police are a military force. But we do need strong policing, sometimes maybe more money for better community policing, for better outreach, just to improve the quality of what we have in terms of police-community relations.
Yeah. Greg, about this idea to defund the police departments in some places, you've got Jeremiah Ellison, who is Keith Ellison, the Minnesota early Attorney General's son, saying that he wants to dramatically rethink the way that we keep people safe, as he puts it, in Minneapolis. What do you think?
He is a fan of Antifa, so his opinion means nothing. I tried to be nice in the A block, but that's out the window. If you want to defund the police, go for it. Any celebrity who endorses it, 911 should block their number, right? And any gun dealer, every gun dealer should never sell a gun to somebody who wants to defund the police. Because what they are doing when they're purchasing a weapon is they're getting security for themselves while denying it for you, all right? So I say go for it. Speaking of guns, How do you think gun control as an issue is going to fare after the Democratic National Convention hit the streets, right? That spectacle of lawlessness effectively did more to end gun control than anything the NRA could ever dream of. You are watching people buy more guns than ever before, and I include myself in that. So now that gets to my last point that I wanted to say at the end of the A block. You know, when Trump does something considered good, what is always the criticism? Well, he should have done it sooner. You know, he should have shut down travel sooner. You know, he should have shut down the city sooner. Well, when Juan said, you know, how great it was that we saw these peaceful protests, well, I would like to say, I wish it would have happened sooner. Because then my neighborhood wouldn't have been destroyed and decimated. And I wouldn't be looking at people trying to rebuild their lives. Maybe it could have been done sooner. I mean, how would you feel if your neighborhood was destroyed? You know what? Great example, Chris Palmer. You got to look up his tweets. He tweeted while rioters burned down low-income housing, he tweeted, burn it all down. And then when the rioters got to his gated community, he called the cops. See the shift? Everybody can talk about and wax romantic about the movement and how we need systemic change because it means nothing until they get to your door and then it all goes out the window.
Katie, it's a great point.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be
nice. A lot of
nice.
people who've never owned guns in their lives, people who've never owned guns in their lives who are now thinking about getting them. And I think this is going to be a very tough selling point for Democrats who have been in favor of more gun control and cracking down and more background checks. It's going to be a tough argument, I think, in this environment.
Yeah, you know, the gun control issue and the gun rights issue and the role of the Second Amendment during the pandemic and during this recent spate of riots around the country is one that we don't have time to fully discuss here, but it proves again that we have a lesson to learn, and that is when the police are dealing with criminals, you are left on your own to defend yourself and your family. You are your only defense, and you are the last defense. So, Greg, welcome to the club. Congratulations. I'm glad that you've now joined. That's good. But in terms of, Martha, your question about Democrats and the selling to the rest of the country, you know, politically, this is a very tough issue for them. There's a poll that came out today from Marist and NPR that shows that 56% of registered voters, not just Americans, but registered voters, says that they believe the police have responded to these situations either correctly or not aggressively enough. And so this idea that you're going to defund the police comes from far left people. It's an elitist argument that punishes the very people, the most vulnerable people that they claim to be standing up for. And that is the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the first time in most of our lives, Jesse, we got the feeling of the potential of not having any protection out there. And then you talk about potentially defunding police departments and making them weaker. And we already know that the situations we've been watching do, in some cases, make police back off in certain interactions. They just don't want to go there necessarily, which is a dangerous thing.
And now that I know that Greg's packing, I'm going to be a lot nicer to him in the green room. You can definitely bet on that for sure. But just put yourself in the mind of a criminal here. Because if you hear people are going to slash the budget for the police, you're thinking to yourself, all right, great, let's pop the champagne. Let's start the crime spree. That means less squad cars, less helicopters, less firepower, less detectives, less drug-sniffing dogs, less task forces. I mean, you're just going to run wild because now you're going to resist arrest more because people aren't going to be able to call for backup. There's going to be slower response times for crimes. It's going to go crazy. What people don't understand is most of the police in the inner city, they're not shooting it out with gangbangers like you see on TV every day. You know what they're doing? They're helping a homeless guy who's fallen into the subway. They are breaking up a fight outside of a bar. They're helping a child that has injured themselves. They're responding to a domestic disturbance where someone's getting hurt. They're actually trying to help people and answering calls from people who are saying, please come and help. So everybody go watch Live PD this weekend. It's live, and you can see they're not there to be mean bad guys. They're there to help.
Jesse, that's on against your show and my show.
DVR live
right.
PD.
Coming up.
Won't be live anymore.
Straight ahead. Will